Time's 8:24. On the phone from Tokyo is Nick Smith, Japan strategist at CLSA. Morning, Nick.
Good morning to you.
Let's continue this conversation about the global energy crisis. I think the Japanese government was listening to your last appearance on this programme and your recent research reports calling for a restarting of the nuclear power plants. That seems to be exactly their remedy to this problem.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Japan's been through a lot of problems over the last 6 or 9 months on energy. So, at the back end of last year, I was saying that Japan couldn't honour its CO2 pledges without restarting nuclear. Then we had a surge in oil and gas prices, which sent the energy prices up. Then we've got energy generation supply shortfalls. So it has to bring nuclear back just so that it's got enough generating capacity. Then we had problems with the trade and the current account, which are weakening the yen, just because the amount of hydrocarbons imported pushes down the trade surplus. And then we've had a weakening yen as well, which makes it even worse. So finally, the Prime Minister, I mean, we've had a Prime Minister that we've been talking about saying, very great man, we don't know what he believes in. And then suddenly he's been pounding the table on nuclear and saying, we do have to get this restarted. So he said, we need to have 10 nuclear power plants restarted this year. Then he's even gone forward to say, and those 2 nuclear power plants that we're midway through building, we have to get those completed as well, which was precisely what I was saying in my report on nuclear renaissance.
In Japan's energy mix, where do renewables fit in? Is there more emphasis now on building up them as quickly as possible?
Well, obviously, renewables have got a problem in the context of Japan. So if you think in terms of solar, well, Japan's built a lot of solar, but you think about it as taking up an order of magnitude more space. And so if you're a country like Japan, which is mostly mountains and small percentage of livable land area, then you've got high population density. Therefore, you necessarily need high power density, and that means nuclear or thermal, not renewables. So that's one of the problems, and I make calculations saying, well, showing how much land area would be needed for adding capacity with solar. But the other problem is, of course, the continental shelf drops away very, very fast off the coast of Japan, which means offshore wind is much more problematic for Japan. So really, you're looking at the one source, the single source of generating capacity that has no carbon footprint and doesn't have problems with big swings in its supply with the amount of daylight or the amount of wind going through. So for Japan, it is absolutely crucial, as a company that's heavily dependent on imported hydrocarbons from the volatile Middle East, that it gets nuclear restarted. And we now have a Prime Minister in Japan who really understands that and is prepared to take the political risks of putting his name behind it and pushing.
Okay, now you mentioned the yen. The yen is on the slide once again. It's now fallen below 140 against the US dollar. What is the impact of this on the Japanese economy and also on corporate profits?
Yeah, I mean, I think Governor Kuroda, the Bank of Japan, has long said that a weak yen is a positive for the economy net. I mean, obviously there are always parts that are hurt by it, and there are parts that benefit from it. But net, it's a positive. Back in 1995, when the strength of the yen and was at its peak, and before we got into deflation, since there, the real effective exchange rate for Japan has weakened by 58-59%. And I think we're now sort of 18-19% weaker than we were last year on that measure, just because everyone else is, in addition to the currency, and everyone else has got more inflation than Japan. that makes Japan a brutally competitive production location. I mean, I think at the moment stock prices aren't figuring that in too much because they're much more focused on, yes, but we're going into recession. I'm not investing on that so much as just trying to protect whatever capital I've got.
And then briefly on earnings, what does this all mean for Japanese profits?
Well, I think the weak yen will paper over a lot of problems in Japanese profitability. I think they're holding up reasonably well. Remember, this is an economy that is doing a lot of the positive things that other people did late, so it's finally coming in with fiscal stimulus, and it's finally reopening from the pandemic later than others. So I would have thought that profits in Japan will look relatively good, and of course the market is dirt cheap, so that makes it an interesting market to be invested in.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. That's Nick Smith, Japan strategist at CLSA in Tokyo.